said that they thought that people of the United States are in a right, ought to be free and independent. What did they say? They appealed to the laws of nature and of nature's God. They didn't say, get God out of here. We're not acting for the sake of God. We have no regard for God. They said God is the supreme judge. That's how he was described, the supreme judge of the world. And it was with a due regard for his judgment that they proclaimed the reasons for their action. And it was on a firm belief and reliance in his divine providence that they moved forward to prosecute what they knew would be an inevitable war in which they would begin with the greatest disadvantages and no hope of victory but in that righteous goodwill of God. You see? That's what it was about. That's what they said. They began from the premise of God. And what is it that we receive from God? It's the other thing nobody wants to talk about now, but which I think is so critical. Today, if you ask people what America is about, the first word likely to come out of their mouths is freedom. Freedom. A word that when you stand back and think about, what is freedom? Well, freedom essentially means two things. The ability to go on doing what you're doing. We generally refer to that as freedom, right? But it also refers to the opportunity to choose between alternatives in such a way that the alternative you choose will be the one you follow. That's freedom. It refers to an opportunity to act and an opportunity to choose freely, according to the disposition of your own will. That's interesting. Is freedom really what America's about? I mean, what's really fascinating is that they say that the people of the United States are and of right ought to be free. These states are and of right ought to be free and independent states. But when it comes to defining justice, they don't use the word freedom. They use the word, first of all, rights. And when they describe the purpose of government, they don't say the purpose of government so everybody can have freedom. They don't say that. They say to secure these rights, unalienable rights that come from the hand of Almighty God, to secure, make safe, make it so that people can hold on to these rights. That's why governments are instituted. The purpose of government is to secure the rights of people. Now, you'll say, but Alan, raise my hand. Rights are freedoms. Everybody says so. You listen to all the politicians, you listen to Rand Paul and everybody else, they act as if, they speak as if the word freedom and the word right are interchangeable. You just say freedoms, you say rights, you mean the same thing. Is that true? Can't possibly be true. Can't possibly be true. And it can't possibly be true for a reason that's evident to logic. It may very well be true that every right involves an exercise of freedom. How many of you would make bold to say that every freedom involves an exercise of right? See, suddenly you're having to pause. You're having to pause because you see, oh, wait a minute. When I use the word right, I'm adding something. When I use the word right, I'm not just referring to the freedom to do something. I'm referring to the fact that what you are doing with right. You have the right on your side when you do it. So our founders didn't speak just of freedom, they spoke of right. And they not only spoke of right, they spoke of God-endowed right. What does God-endowed mean? Well, let's take a look at endowments. What's an endowment? Well, generally speaking, we have the word very familiar to us in the way that people will endow a university with funds, right? They will sometimes give an endowment or set up an endowment at a university. Now, in the same way that every right is an exercise of freedom, but every freedom is not the exercise of right, every endowment is a gift. But not every gift is an endowment. What's the difference? Well, very often, an endowment is going to come for a specific purpose with conditions that are set in order to achieve that purpose. So that when you give that endowment, you are actually also establishing a structure, a framework.